Hey guys, tonight we step into a world far removed from ours, yet strangely familiar. Imagine the clink of iron-studded gates closing as the last rays of sunlight dip behind the battlements. Torches flicker against mossy stone walls. Somewhere in the castle, silk rustles not from battle armor or knightly conquest, but from a noblewoman's gown as she paces her chamber. Outside, peasants huddle near their hearths, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and smoke. But this isn't about court politics or epic battles. No, tonight we follow a quieter thread, a softer one. What did medieval ladies do? For fun, you might think, well, not much. And honestly, you're not entirely wrong. Fun wasn't exactly a birthright in the 14th century, especially not for women. But within the stiff rituals of etiquette and expectation, you'd be surprised by the small rebellions, the secret hobbies, and even the unexpected freedoms. Whether cloistered in castles or spinning yarn in cottages, medieval women, noble and peasant alike, found their own ways to laugh, to escape, to play. And spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't survive their version of leisure. Falconry with a hawk twice your size, composing poetry while dodging scandal, performing lute ballads with bloody calloused fingers. Not your average Sunday scroll on TikTok. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from a warm bed right now, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I always love seeing where my sleepy travelers are from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the upper gallery of a medieval castle, stone underfoot, tapestries on the wall, and the sharp scent of beeswax and herbs clinging to the air. You're not a nobleman or a squire or a monk. You're a lady of the court, not by accident, but by birth. And with that role comes layers of lace duty and expectations, but also windows into a very curious world of leisure. You begin your day after the morning bell tolls. It's not exactly a morning alarm, more like a command from the chapel tower. The servants have already laid out your linen shift, tightened your corset, and arranged the underlayers of your gown with silent precision. When you walk, you glide. When you speak, it's expected to be soft and purposeful. But you know better than to think of this life as idle. You are trained intellectually, socially, and even physically for what's ahead. Your first fun of the day isn't what you might expect. No dance, no painting. It's embroidery. That's right, needle and thread. But don't roll your eyes. This isn't grandma's cozy corner stitching. These are visual masterpieces, mini tapestries, battle scenes in thread, saints rendered in dyed silk. Some noblewomen are so good their handiwork ends up in cathedrals. And beneath each stitch is a quiet rebellion sewing opinions, emotions, even secret allegories into the fabric. You sit in a sunlit window nook, your fingers moving with the rhythm of memory, your mind elsewhere, perhaps on a story you've been composing in your head. Speaking of stories, one of the truest joys among literate noblewomen is reading aloud, or more precisely, being read to. Illuminated manuscripts arrive by courier. Romance tales, chivalric adventures, saints' lives, all shared in women's chambers, especially after supper. Listening to a friend read while sipping honeyed wine is the medieval version of Netflix. You smile at the dramatic voice your lady-in-waiting uses for the night's dialogue. Your favorite tale, the one where a princess cross-dresses as a knight and wins a tournament. Scandalous. But don't think courtly life is all silent pursuits. The gardens outside your window call. Leisure strolls aren't just for air, they're for flirtation, gossip, and one-upmanship. You greet other noblewomen with a curtsy and a watchful eye. What flowers she picks today could mean something. Is it rosemary for remembrance or rue for regret? Symbolism is your second language. You walk with your hawk, her hood trimmed in velvet. Yes, your hawk. You're trained in falconry, one of the most elite pastimes. With gloves thick as armor, you raise your arm and feel her talons tighten. She spots a rabbit dives, and the other ladies cheer. Later that week, you'll join in a hunt. It's a major social affair, half pageantry, half survival. The men ride with spears. You on a sleek white horse keep pace along the forest's edge. You're not expected to kill, but the chase is everything. Your heart races with the thudding hooves, the cracking branches, and the thrill of being part of something primal. Back inside the castle walls, the evening brings music. Minstrels arrive, but sometimes it's you who performs. You're taught the lute, the harp, or perhaps you've been secretly learning the vielle. Your fingers are sore, but the melody is pure magic. You sing ballads in Occitan, the language of courtly love, and the chamber hushes to hear your voice. Then there are the games. Yes, games. Chess is a favorite both for the strategy and the flirtation. You play with a visiting nobleman. He tries to distract you with compliments. You let him believe he's winning. Then checkmate. The women around you grin behind their hands. But perhaps your favorite joy is composing poetry. Not for public ears, not for church scribes, just for yourself or your closest friends. You write in the margins of your prayer book. You write by candlelight when everyone else is asleep. Rhymed verses about secret love, longing, even the boredom of perfection. A hidden voice in a world full of rules. Outside, the moon has risen. Somewhere a lute is still playing. You set down your embroidery, pull your fur-lined mantle tight, and move to the balcony. Cold wind, clear stars, and the scent of pine. Tomorrow brings more duties. But tonight, you had fun. And maybe, just maybe, you've stitched a little bit of freedom into that hemline. The morning air is sharp with dew, and somewhere down in the courtyard, boots thud against the packed earth as pages drill with wooden swords. But up here in your chamber tower, the world is quieter. You're already dressed layers of wool, linen, and velvet, each chosen for warmth, status, and beauty. And as you descend the spiral stair, you can't help but feel a flutter of anticipation. Today, you're headed to the solar, the warmest room in the castle. Sunlight spills through narrow arched windows, glinting off polished metal thread in your gown. And this space is the heart of feminine company, where noblewomen gather not just to sew or read, but to converse, advise, and let's be honest, gossip. The topics are endless. Who's been promised to whom? Which abbey is short on donations? Whether Lady Beatrice's daughter will be allowed to study Latin with the monks. Every sentence is veiled, every word layered with implication. But there's a sharper edge to these talks, too. This is where you learn how to survive, how to read a room, how to make an ally in a rival, how to charm a bishop without inviting scandal. There's a real skill to this sort of courtly dance, and it's a kind of fun that's dangerously close to strategy. After all, you live in a world where your husband may be chosen for you, your estate managed without you, and your future constantly discussed, but rarely by you. So every whispered conversation, every clever retort, is a small reclaiming of power. This afternoon, though, promises something even better. A traveling troupe of entertainers has arrived. They're setting up near the orchard just outside the castle walls. You're practically giddy. These aren't the court minstrels you're used to. These are jugglers, puppeteers, acrobats, even a bear handler if the rumors are true. You tuck a silken scarf into your sleeve and join the other ladies down the winding path. The scent of hay and spiced cider fills the air. children chase chickens. The performers shout rhymes and riddles, daring the crowd to solve them. You take a seat on a raised platform, feet dangling, and laugh aloud as a dwarf tumbles through a ring of fire. A carved puppet mimics the local priest and makes everyone howl with glee, though you're careful not to laugh too loudly. There are always watchers in the crowd. A man with painted cheeks offers you candied almonds. You buy two. The almonds are sticky sweet, a treat your mother would have scolded you for as a child. But this is your afternoon, a performance just for your joy, and you let yourself enjoy it. That night you sit by the hearth with your ladies-in-waiting and replay every funny moment, every gasp, every wild costume. You realize something laughter is its own form of resistance in a life that often expects only poise. As the flames die low, you talk of another kind of performance, one you've only heard about in whispers. The court of love. It's not a literal court. It's a game played among the highest circles of noblewomen and troubadours, especially in Aquitaine and Provence. Picture this, a noblewoman presiding as judge over a poetry contest where men argue the finer points of romance. Can a knight love two women at once? Is love without suffering, even love at all? Each case is brought before the court like a trial, poems as evidence, emotions as law. You imagine yourself sitting in judgment, adorned in gold and sapphire, deciding who has truly captured the essence of love in verse. It's absurd, and yet captivating. There's a power in deciding the meaning of something as slippery as affection. Your own poetry, meanwhile, is becoming more daring. You've written a verse that's almost definitely about the young stable master with the crooked smile. You'll never show it. But writing it was exhilarating. And that secret, a silly, flirty poem tucked in the margins of your psalter, feels more satisfying than any formal applause. A few days later, during a feast held in the main hall, you get to showcase another of your talents, dance. Forget the image of flowing ball gowns spinning in candlelight. This is medieval dance, structured, deliberate, full of rhythm and ritual. You know the steps to the carol, a popular circle dance. You grip the hands of the women beside you, the embroidered sleeves of your gown brushing theirs as you move in sync. The minstrels play a rebec and pipe. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost tribal. Across the circle, you lock eyes with someone, a cousin of the Count visiting from another province. He's grinning. You grin back. You keep dancing. Later, you'll pass each other in the corridor and pretend it didn't happen. But you both remember. The court remembers. This is how alliances form, and sometimes how trouble starts. Then comes a quieter day. It's raining outside, the sound of it steady against the slate roof. You sit in the library. Yes, your castle has one, though it's more a small room with chained books and musty scrolls than anything grand. You're learning to read Middle French now, trying to puzzle through Christine de Pizan's The Book of the City of Ladies. You love her voice, so smart, so sharp. She dares to question the way men write about women. She defends your sex with poetry, scholarship, and sarcasm. You wonder if she ever laughed at a puppet show, too. Probably. That night, as you lie in bed, warm beneath layers of wool and fur, you reflect on everything you've done this week. No great war was won. No throne was seized. But you danced. You judged love. You wrote poetry that no one may ever read. And you laughed. And in this life that is no small victory, the sun rises late in winter, casting long golden streaks through the high windows of your chamber. You pull your cloak tighter as you cross the chilly flagstones headed toward the chapel, not just for prayer, but for something more invigorating, music practice. You don't just sing hymns here. You study the psaltery, the dulcimer, and the vielle, medieval, stringed instruments that challenge your coordination and patience. The strings sting your fingertips. Your posture aches from sitting so straight, but the reward is undeniable. Music is one of the few spaces where your spirit feels utterly free. You can play softly and dream or loudly and command attention, and the way the tones echo in the stone chapel makes every note feel holy. Sometimes you play duets with the other ladies, or accompany a singer performing tales of doomed lovers and daring queens. The lyrics are haunting, but you like that. Life in your world is full of rules, but music. Music lets you stretch the limits without ever breaking them. Later during the midday meal, you overhear one of the steward's sons whispering about an upcoming festival in the village. Your ears perk up. It's nearly Candlemas. That means processions, dancing mummers' plays, and most exciting of all, a chance to slip out beyond the castle walls without needing a formal excuse. Because sometimes even a noblewoman gets bored of embroidery and chess. With the blessing of your chaperone and a thick woolen cloak wrapped tight around your shoulders, you ride out to the village square. It smells of wet thatch and roasting chestnuts. Children dart past in homemade masks ringing little bells. Someone offers you a ribbon to tie in your braid, and for once no one bows or calls you my lady. You're just another person enjoying the festival. You join in a simple circle dance by the fire, rustic, messy, full of laughter. A man in a carved wooden mask pretends to be a bear and chases the dancers. The crowd howls with delight. You dodge him breathless, your cheeks flushed, your boots muddy. And for a moment, you're not watched, not judged, not even entirely recognizable. You return to the castle that night glowing, smelling like smoke and spice. Your maid peels off your layers and clucks at the dirt on your hem, but you don't care. You're still smiling. The next day, your mood is lighter. That kind of joy lingers. You spend the morning painting not on canvas but on parchment, illuminating the margins of a psalter, adding vines, gold leaf stars, and even a few playful animals. A monkey playing a lute, a snail in armor. The monks would call it irreverent, but you know better. It's humor, your private joke with the page. You're not alone in this. Many noble women learn to paint, especially if they're connected to religious orders. A few even become renowned artists in their own right. You think of one nun you met last summer, a woman who painted saints with such softness, you could swear the cheeks were warm. She told you, when the men write history, we write light. Your light today is blue and red and glinting gold. It spills across the parchment, and you feel strangely proud. That afternoon, a messenger arrives bearing a sealed letter. It's from your cousin in another county. She writes of her falcon laying eggs, of her father's failing health, and more thrilling, of a new board game she's received from Italy. It's called Tables. You've never heard of it. A cousin to backgammon, she says, but with regional twists. She promises to teach you when you next visit. This is another joy correspondence. You write often, not just to family, but to other noblewomen, even abbesses and scholars. Your letters carry news, advice, gossip, and poetry. Some are passed from hand to hand like treasure. The right word from the right lady in the right corner of the realm can open doors that no knight ever could. You spend the next hour composing your reply. The ink stains your fingers. You pause to warm the quill by the brazier. You sprinkle fine sand over the parchment to set it. Then you press your seal into the wax. It's a small act, but it feels important. A voice reaching past walls and miles. That evening, as the castle grows quieter, you retreat to your private sitting room with a handful of other ladies. The conversation turns to the future, your betrothals, your lands, your dowries. But one of the younger girls surprises everyone by asking, "What would you do if you weren't a lady?" There's a beat of silence. You smile and say, "I'd be a traveling bard, singing and stealing hearts in every village. The others laugh, and the game begins. If you weren't born noble, who would you be? A baker, a healer, a witch in the woods with cats and secrets. It's silly talk, maybe even dangerous, but it's fun. A chance to dream beyond the borders of your duties. One girl, barely 14, says she'd be a knight. Everyone chuckles until she adds, "I'd save only women." You all burst out laughing, but no one corrects her. Later, alone in your chamber, you trace your finger along the carved edge of the window. The wind howls outside. You think of the festival, the letters, the laughter. You think of your cousin's game board, of the snail, in armor of the girl who wants to save only women. You smile. Life in your world may be structured like a cathedral built from stone and rules. But here and there in the cracks and arches is something else: color, play, joy, and in those little spaces, you live fully. You wake to birdsong and the muffled hum of the servants below. The fire has long gone out, and the chill bites at your cheeks before you even open your eyes. You stretch beneath the weight of wool blankets and furs, delaying the moment when your feet will hit the cold stone floor. Today will be long, but it will bring something different. You're heading to the abbey. The journey itself is part of the fun. A small procession of ladies, guards, and servants winds its way down the forest path, hooves squelching through muddy ruts and dry leaves. You ride side saddle, your skirts gathered neatly, but you can't help leaning forward slightly every time your mare picks up speed. There's something about the rhythm of the ride, the air slicing fresh against your face, that makes you feel wild, even though you look perfectly composed. The abbey rises from the mist like something out of a dream. High walls, tall windows, and cloisters wrapped around quiet gardens. It smells of lavender and old parchment. But this visit isn't for confession, it's for learning. Not every noblewoman gets this privilege, but your family has an arrangement with the prioress. Once a month you join the nuns for a few days to study reading Latin, copying texts, discussing scripture, even debating philosophy. You wouldn't dare tell most men, but your favorite part is the logic puzzles. The abbess once challenged you to a riddle written by Boethius. It took you 3 nights, and when you solved it, she simply nodded and handed you another. You adored her for that. Today, you're working with ink again, this time copying a psalm onto vellum. Your letters are painstaking, each one shaped with focus and care. The quill scratches lightly as you dip and drag. There's a kind of peace in this work, a silence so full it almost hums. Occasionally a wren flits past the window. A bell tolls somewhere beyond the courtyard. Your back aches. Your neck is stiff, but your mind is glowing. Later, the abbess invites you to join the other girls in the herb garden. It's not exactly play, but it's sensory and delightful. You walk rows of mint, rosemary, fennel, and rue, collecting sprigs into your basket. You learn which plants can be used for teas, which can soothe fevers, which help with headaches or melancholy. The youngest nun, a cheerful novice with a red nose, tells you that chewing lavender before sleep invites sweet dreams. You tuck a sprig into your sleeve just in case. That evening you sit with the sisters as they recite verses in soft, layered voices. You don't sing aloud. You're only a guest, but your heart moves with the rhythm. Afterward, you sneak away with one of the younger nuns to the top of the bell tower. From there, you can see the entire valley. Stars blink slowly into the darkening sky, and the two of you speak in hushed voices about anything except God or Latin. You talk about dreams, about stories, about the stable boy she once loved before she took the veil. She asks if you're scared of marriage. You don't lie. You say yes, She doesn't judge you, just passes you a dried fig and says, "Me too once." When you return to the castle 2 days later, it feels a little smaller somehow. More predictable, but also warmer. Your ladies-in-waiting rush to hear about the abbey. Did you see the scriptorium? Did you try the honey cakes? Did you touch the skull of Saint Juliana? You exaggerate a little. It makes for better storytelling. You laugh, and they laugh, and you realize how much you missed them. That night you stay up late playing riddles. One of the younger girls has gotten her hands on a French poem with hidden meanings. You huddle around the parchment, trying to guess the secret words. The stakes, a day off from embroidery for the winner. You take it very seriously. The next morning, after hours of lacework, you're invited to something more exhilarating, hawk training. Your bird Merla is lean fast and temperamental. She flaps furiously when you approach, but calms the moment your gloved hand lifts. She's tied with jesses and a bell, and when you finally release her into the wide open field, she arcs like a shadow across the pale sky. You whistle twice. She turns, spirals, then drops like a dagger toward a rabbit in the grass. She misses this time, but it doesn't matter. She returns to you proud and shivering. You stroke her breast gently and feed her a bit of meat. There's something strange and powerful in holding a predator so close, in training it, in mastering the dance of instinct and control. Back at the castle, you retreat to your solar to warm up. And to your delight, someone has left out a small box of ivory game pieces, mirrors, or 9 men's Morris. A strategy game deceptively simple. You challenge one of the older ladies and lose the first 3 rounds. But by the 4th, you begin to see the patterns. It's a metaphor you realize for court life. Trap, maneuver, claim. All done slowly with a smile. As twilight falls, you're invited to something even more rare, a mask. The great hall is transformed. Tapestries, shifted candles lit by the dozen perfumed branches arranged along the walls. Everyone is masked faces, hidden behind painted wood or embroidered silk. You wear a fox's face, golden eyes gleaming. Someone in a stag mask bows to you. Another in a peacock costume offers a cryptic rhyme. It's strange, theatrical, and utterly thrilling. Behind the anonymity of the mask, people loosen. You dance with someone whose voice you recognize but can't quite place. You exchange riddles with a lady who turns out to be the cook's daughter in borrowed silk. Everyone becomes someone else for a few hours. Titles vanish, rules bend. When the mask ends, you remove your mask and breathe deep. The air smells of wax and citrus and something unspoken. You go to bed that night with a mind buzzing from the herbs, the games, the starlit conversations, and the memory of your hawk's wings slicing the air. You think, this is what it means to live well, even in a life not wholly your own. And somehow you fall asleep smiling. The castle feels oddly hushed this morning, as if the stone walls themselves are holding their breath. You pace your chamber in soft slippers, your thoughts still tangled in last night's mask, the eyes behind the stag mask. Who were they? Did he know who you were? Did he guess you knew who he was? You don't mention it aloud. Instead, you head down to the kitchens. Not a usual place for a noblewoman, but today you've been granted permission. And the reason is delicious, a cooking lesson. Not just tasting or watching doing. You've always been curious about how the miracles on your plate come together. The stews, the spiced tarts, the honey cakes with their carved tops. The cook, a stout woman with flour on her elbows and no time for silliness, hands you an apron and a rolling pin. You laugh. She doesn't. Dough waits for no lady, she says. So you get to work. the flour clouds the air. Your sleeves are a disaster. You learn how to grind almonds with a stone mortar, how to lace wine with cinnamon and cloves, how to test if a goose is properly roasted by the color of its fat. Every motion is a little bit messy and a lot satisfying. There's something grounding about it, real work, tactile, imperfect. One of the scullery maids hums as she kneads. You join in. The cook doesn't stop you this time. When you finally bring your creation a meat pie in a decorative crust up to the solar, the other ladies cheer. You've never felt prouder. The crust is too thick. The filling is uneven. But it's yours, and it's devoured. Later, curled up by the hearth with a mug of hot cider, one of the older ladies begins to tell a tale you've heard a dozen times, but never tire of. It's about a noblewoman who once disguised herself as a pilgrim to escape a marriage, and ended up living for 3 years in the forest, with nothing but a pack of dogs and a harp. She returned only when she'd composed an entire epic poem and used it to win back her lens. You all know it's exaggerated, embellished. Probably didn't happen. But you cling to it anyway because stories like that mean something. They offer a glimmer of what might be possible just maybe if the world tilted in your favor for once. You fall asleep that night with the scent of cinnamon on your hands and dreams of forests and songs. The next day brings one of your favorite rituals, the bathhouse. Now don't get the wrong idea. Medieval bathing isn't exactly what you're used to. You're not lounging in marble tubs with endless hot water and rose petals. No. You're in a wooden tub, in a semi-warm room, filled with steam-bark chips and dried herbs tossed onto hot stones. But still, it's heavenly. Your ladies help you undress and lower into the water. It's been scented with thyme and juniper. The heat soaks into your bones. You close your eyes, your hair pinned high, your skin prickling in the best way. You chat lazily. Nothing serious. Who danced with whom? What the bishop said in his last sermon. Whether a new weaving pattern might be worth trying. The steam softens your voice, makes everything feel hushed and intimate. One of the girls tells a riddle. Another starts humming a lullaby. And someone half-joking asks if you believe in love spells. That catches your attention. It turns out one of the maids claims her aunt is a cunning woman, someone who can make charms, potions, and protective tokens. You all lean in closer. Supposedly, if you tie a strand of your hair with red thread and bury it under a flowering tree, the man whose name you whisper will dream of you for 9 nights straight. You laugh, but you also make a mental note of where the castle's apple tree is. After the bath, you dress in a robe and eat warm bread with honey while your hair is brushed. You don't even try to hide your contentment. Sometimes you realize fun isn't wild or grand, it's just feeling cared for. That afternoon, a traveling merchant arrives. He lays out goods in the great hall, fabrics from the east, little mirrors in copper frames, rare spices in tiny pots, and best of all, trinkets from foreign lands. There's something intoxicating about the objects you can't name, can't fully understand. A small wooden figurine of a many-armed goddess, a bell carved from dark stone, a bit of red glass that catches the light just so. You buy a tiny vial of rose oil and a packet of saffron. Extravagant, yes, but you'll stretch them for months. A single drop of rose behind your ear before a feast. A pinch of saffron in rice when your mood dips. These things feel like secrets. Then just as you're about to leave, the merchant produces something truly curious, a deck of playing cards. Not just hand-painted, etched, beautifully detailed. They're still rare in your part of the realm. He explains the suits, the rules, the meanings. You watch him play around with a guard, Then convince one of your ladies to try a match with you. It's addicting. The thrill of guessing, the delight of outsmarting, the playfulness of risking imaginary coin. That night, you and your closest companions gather in your room with a single candle and deal cards across a velvet cloth. You make up your own rules, assign meanings to the suits, create little punishments for losing. You giggle more than you have in days. Outside, the wind howls again, but inside it's all soft laughter and candlelight. And as you drift into sleep, it strikes you none of this was required. No duty demanded it. You danced because you wanted to. You cooked because it made you happy. You played, you bathed, you bought something just because it was pretty. You had fun. And in your world, that's a quiet kind of triumph. You're up before the servants this morning, not from duty, but anticipation. A letter arrived late last night from your aunt inviting you to spend a week at her manor in the countryside. She promises you fresh air, quiet fields, and most tempting of all, freedom from courtly expectations. You don't even wait for your maid to lace your bodice, you begin packing immediately, tucking in your poetry book, a carved ivory comb, and secretly the deck of playing cards from last night's game. The journey takes half a day. The roads are muddy, the carriage bumps with every stone, and your cloak smells faintly of damp wool. But when you arrive, the view takes your breath. Rolling hills, dense groves of beech and ash, a small lake that shimmers in the late spring sun. Her manor isn't grand, it's sturdy, simple, and far removed from the chatter and performance of castle life. Your aunt meets you on the steps, her hair in a loose braid, her sleeves rolled. She hugs you without ceremony and says, "No embroidery this week, only mischief." You grin. That's why you came. The first evening is spent on the porch, barefoot, sipping warm milk with herbs, as she recounts a tale of how she once faked a vision to get out of a forced engagement. You laugh so hard your ribs ache. She always tells the best stories, the kind no one dares write down. The next morning, she wakes you early with a nudge and a grin. Time to forage. Still half asleep, you follow her into the woods, baskets in hand. She teaches you to find wild garlic mushrooms safe to eat and the first signs of spring violets. You crush mint between your fingers and rub it on your neck just because it smells nice. The world feels so green here, so alive. The woods are full of birdsong, and when she spots deer tracks, your heart skips. You crouch beside her, whispering, "Do you think we'll see one? You don't." But the thrill of the search is enough. Back at the manor, you bake small hand pies filled with herbs and soft cheese. No banquet, no servants. Just you and your aunt elbow deep in dough and laughter. You feel younger, freer. In the afternoons, you sit beneath a willow tree by the lake and read aloud to one another. She chooses verses by female troubadours, trobirates they're called. Women who sang of love not as idealized suffering, but as passion, cleverness, power. One poem in particular makes your cheeks burn. It speaks of a woman who waits for her lover not in a tower, but beneath the stars, bold and unashamed. You don't speak for a while after that one. You just watch the wind ripple the water. The next day, your aunt shows you something she's hidden away, a collection of charms and talismans. Bones wrapped in twine, pressed herbs bound in cloth, a small mirror marked with wax. You look at her wide-eyed. You believe in magic, you ask. She raises a brow. I believe in women who make their own rules. She shows you how to craft a simple protective charm, lavender for peace, rosemary for remembrance, sage for clarity. You stitch it into a pouch and hang it by your bed that night. You don't know if it works, but your sleep is dreamless and deep. On the fourth day, it rains. hard. You stay indoors trying your hand at weaving. Not the noble kind with looms and patterns, but basket weaving. Your fingers ache. The reeds are stubborn, but slowly a shape forms. By the end of the day, you've created a lopsided, usable basket. Your aunt says she's proud. You feel strangely accomplished. That evening, you light a fire, and she pulls out a faded set of bones, the knuckle bones used in fortune games. She teaches you how to throw them, how to interpret them. One roll means travel. Another means conflict. A third means unexpected joy. You throw the bones. They land in a pattern she hasn't seen in years. Well, she says squinting looks like you're going to break someone's heart. You laugh and toss again. This time it reads peace, rest, growth. You keep that one. The following day is your favorite. You go swimming. It's not ladylike, not permitted, not even slightly proper. But your aunt takes you to a hidden cove on the lake where the water is warm and still. You strip down to your shift and wade in, squealing at the cold, laughing, as fish dart past your ankles. She dives in like a girl half her age. You follow. The lake swallows sound. The world fades. It's just water, sky breath. For a moment you float on your back and stare up at the clouds, weightless. Later, drying your hair in the sun, you say, I wish I didn't have to go back. She nods, brushing a lock from your face. But you'll take this with you. And you do. When you return to the castle, your hands are rougher, your voice surer, your eyes clearer. The ladies swarm you for stories. Did you attend a feast, see a bear, dance with a lord? You smile and say, I made a basket. They look confused. You don't explain. That night, you hang your charm by your bed. You tuck the basket beside your hearth. You take out the deck of cards, roll the knuckle bones, and write a new poem in the margin of your psalter. Let them sing of towers and cages, I'll write of woods and wild things, because now you know what fun really feels like. It feels like mud between your toes. It smells like mint and baked cheese. It sounds like laughter without anyone listening. And once you've had it, you never forget. It's nearing midsummer now. The days are long and golden, and the castle seems to breathe a little easier. Even the guards at the gate smile more readily. With the heat settling into the stones and the scent of blooming heather drifting in through the open windows, you wake with one thing on your mind, the midsummer festival. Every lady in the castle has been preparing for it. Garlands are being woven from wildflowers. New dresses stitched with brighter dyes. Woad blues, madder reds, and brilliant yellows from weld. You choose a gown of soft green not because it flatters you best, but because it blends with the woods you'll wander into later. A secret little rebellion. You spend the morning with the other young women in the outer meadow, gathering herbs and weaving floral crowns. There's music in the background, pipes and a hand drum, and someone has brought out sweet berry cakes wrapped in leaves. The sun is high, the grass warm against your legs as you sit and braid rosemary into your garland. It smells of summer and memory. One of the ladies tells a tale she heard from a shepherd. If you dream of your true love, on Midsummer's Eve it will be the person you see first at sunrise. This prompts a flood of laughter, teasing, and mock wagers on who will accidentally position themselves near the stables in the morning. You don't say it aloud, but part of you wonders. Not about a love spell, not exactly, but about the space between longing and truth. The idea that fun could be more than momentary. That something joyful might last. As the sun begins to dip, the festival begins in earnest. Villagers flood into the outer courtyard. The The castle gates are opened wide for once, a rare mingling of worlds. The men raise a maypole, its ribbons catching the breeze like a flurry of birds. You take one and fall into step with the spiral dance. Round and round, weaving in and out, hands brushing feet, stomping the rhythm, pulsing through your body like thunder. Then the games begin. Archery contests, sack races, even a mock duel between two boys dressed in pots and pans. You cheer until your throat aches. Someone hands you a cup of honeyed wine, sweet and dizzying. You sip it slowly, eyes on the horizon, the sky bleeding orange and pink. As dusk falls, the bonfires are lit. The flames roar up into the dark, and everyone circles around them singing old songs. You recognize some of the melodies passed down from mother to daughter, like secret spells. One woman begins a song in a language you don't know. Others join in, and you follow the tune, even if not the words. There's something ancient in the music, something that doesn't need translation. Then comes the fire leaping. It's symbolic, of course, meant to bring luck and health for the year ahead. But it's also thrilling. The fire crackles, the crowd chants, and one by one, the brave or foolish make the jump. You watch for a long time, heart pounding. Then you hand off your flower crown hike up your gown and run. You leap. For a moment, your feet leave the earth. The heat brushes your skin. The smoke curls behind you like ribbon. And when you land heart racing, the applause is thunderous. That night, you don't go straight to bed. Instead, you walk the long path behind the chapel, where the hill overlooks the river. The stars are thick tonight, silver scattered on deep blue. You sit, breathe, and feel something you haven't in a long time, peace. You think about what fun used to mean to you. Polite games, dances you were expected to enjoy, laughter that never reached your eyes. Now it means something else. It's jumping over fire. It's singing the verse no one expected. It's choosing the green dress instead of the gold. It's knowing that you have more than just a role, you have you. As the moon climbs higher, you take out your little book of verses and begin to write, the ink glinting in the moonlight. Not always seen, but always burning, the joy I found is mine returning. You close the book, press it to your chest, and smile. You don't know what tomorrow holds. More duties likely, a few frowns when they hear you leapt the fire. But it doesn't matter, because tonight you were wild, and nothing can take that from you. The morning after midsummer arrives slowly, as if even the sun needs a moment to recover. You lie in bed longer than usual, your hair still smelling faintly of wood smoke and rosemary. When your maid finally knocks and enters, she stops mid-step, takes one look at your tangled braids and soot-dusted arms, and mutters, "So you did jump." You grin without opening your eyes. After a slow breakfast, soft cheese apples, and the last of the berry cakes, you wander through the herb garden still barefoot. The world feels softer after celebration. The castle returns to its rituals, but there's a lingering spark in everyone's gaze. Even the steward hums under his breath as he inventories supplies. Today you've decided to explore a different kind of fun, quieter, but no less delightful. You're joining the castle's weavers, not because anyone asked you to, not because it's expected, but because you've always been fascinated by the giant wooden looms in the west wing, their rhythmic clacking like a heartbeat behind stone walls. The weaving chamber smells of lanolin beeswax and sun-warmed wool. There are women of every age here, some singing softly, others counting threads. You greet them carefully, respectfully, and take a seat beside one of the younger apprentices. She offers you a shuttle and demonstrates the technique. It's harder than it looks. Your first row is a crooked mess. but you try again and again. Soon your fingers begin to understand. Over-under, beat, slide, pull. Over-under, beat, slide, pull. You fall into rhythm, into trance. One woman tells you that some tapestries carry hidden messages, symbols stitched so subtly that only certain eyes can read them. A bee in the wrong corner. A flower with the wrong number of petals. A coded rebellion. You glance down at your row, wonder what you might hide in yours. After several hours, you stand and stretch back stiff but mind calm. You'll return tomorrow, and maybe the day after. Weaving has its own kind of magic. It's not loud. It's not daring. But it builds. Line by line. Color by color. Joy hidden in threads. That afternoon, you visit the falconer's rookery again, this time not to train, but to sketch. You've taken to drawing lately. You're not a master, but the act of observing and translating what you see onto parchment is strangely intimate. You choose a perch near the farthest wall, where a young falcon preens in the sun. You sketch her beak, her talons, the sleek curve of her wings. Every now and then, she glances at you, tilts her head. You imagine she's posing. You start adding background brambles, a distant tree, the curve of the rookery wall. And then, without quite planning it, you draw a second falcon beside her. Not real, not present. Just imagined. A companion. You add a crown to its head. You smirk. Art, like poetry, lets you say what no one hears. That evening, there's no feast, no fire, no formal entertainment. Just the soft clatter of bowls at supper, and the quiet lull of dusk settling into stone corridors. But you and a few friends decide to invent your own amusement. You sneak into the old storage gallery, technically off limits, but only because no one wants to clean it, and discover a treasure trove. Old costumes from past masks, broken instruments, cracked masks, a chest full of stage props. You set up an impromptu theater in the corner. Nothing grand. Just a few crates stacked for a makeshift stage and a torn curtain hung between two chairs. One girl acts as narrator, another as a swooning knight. You, of course, choose the role of the villainous queen, all sharp glances and dramatic sighs. The play is nonsense, a mix of borrowed ballads, misremembered fables, and improvised chaos. But it's hilarious. You collapse in laughter at least twice. At one point, someone accidentally lights a candle too close to a costume sleeve, and the panic that follows only makes it funnier. By the time the play ends, the entire gallery is echoing with breathless giggles. No one claps, no one bows. You just sit there in the quiet mess, the moonlight sneaking through the cracked shutters, and savor the moment. Later, as you walk back to your chamber, your feet bare against the cold stone, you hear someone whisper, "We should do it again." And you agree. Maybe next time with puppets. Maybe with songs. Maybe with a script, though that's unlikely. Back in your room, you open your psalter, not for prayer but for poetry. You write, "Not all queens wear gold, some rule with laughter, and reign only once in secret after." You blow out the candle and climb into bed. Your hair is dusty, your knees are bruised, your sketch smudged with charcoal, but your heart is full. And sometimes that's the best kind of fun one no one else sees, but you carry with you like a hidden thread woven through everything. It's harvest season now. The air has cooled just enough that your breath curls in the morning, and the leaves have begun their slow shift toward copper and gold. In the village, there's a different energy, busier, yes, but brighter too. Everyone is preparing for the harvest fair, And for once, your castle duties align with something truly joyful. You're invited to attend the festivities as an honored guest, but you know the real fun lies in slipping through the crowd unnoticed. So you dress in a simple woolen overdress tie, your hair back with a strip of linen, and leave your jewelry behind. No guards, no fanfare. Just you and your closest friend passing as ordinary women among the festival goers. The fair is a riot of color and noise. There are stalls selling honeycombs and barley bread ribbons and trinkets, and even pickled eels. You duck between shouting vendors and laughing children, your cheeks flushed from the crisp wind and excitement. You try your hand at a ring toss and miss terribly twice. On the third throw, the ring lands squarely on the peg, and the man running the game rewards you with a small wooden carving of a fox. You hold it in your hand like a trophy, grinning, as if you'd just won a war. Further down the road, there's music, fiddles, pipes, and a drum made from stretched goat hide. You dance. Not the practiced, choreographed steps of courtly circles, but the wild, spinning kind where you hold hands with strangers and let the rhythm pull you into the dirt. Your hair comes loose, your shoes are ruined. You don't care. At one point, a group of older women gather in a circle to sing folk songs. They beckon you in, and though you don't know all the words, you hum along. The harmonies are rough but real. One of the women grabs your hand and says, "You've got strong fingers, you'd have made a fine midwife." It's meant as a compliment. You beam. Afterward, you stop at a stall where the village healer is reading fortunes with scraps of fabric and a pendulum. You sit giggling, but go silent as she begins. She swings the pendulum over a spread of dyed cloths, red, blue, green, black, and watches how it moves. "Change is coming," she says. "Not from without, but from within." You nod solemnly, though you have no idea what it means. Still, the weight of her voice sticks with you. As dusk settles, the bonfires are lit. Unlike the refined torches of castle feasts, these fires crackle with wild abandon. Sparks shoot into the sky, and the night smells of smoke, apples, and burning pine. You find a seat on a hay bale sipping hot cider and listening to a traveling bard tell stories. His voice is low and rich, his eyes catching the firelight. He tells of ghost knights who haunt lakes of clever servant girls, who outwit their masters of tricksters, who become saints. And then he begins a story that sounds familiar. A noblewoman who once leapt a bonfire and changed her fate. You realize slowly that it's you, not by name, not exactly, but close enough. The story has already spread. You glance around. No one stares at you. No one points. But a few girls in the crowd smile as he speaks, eyes glittering with possibility. You head back to the castle late, a little sore, a little tipsy, and more content than you've felt in weeks. The next morning, you return to routine mass needlework, a meeting about winter provisions. But your mind is still at the fair. You bring your wooden fox to the solar and set it on your windowsill. You hum one of the harvest songs as you stitch a hem. And then you do something impulsive. You take a piece of leftover wool, stitch a tiny pouch, and stuff it with rosemary, sage, and a single red ribbon. You tie it closed and tuck it into your bodice. A reminder, a charm, a little rebellion. Later, as the sky turns to amber, you visit the castle's houndmaster. You've always liked the dogs, especially the wiry, excitable ones with too much energy. Today, you ask if you can walk them. He blinks, then shrugs. "They like you," he says. So you take 2 dogs barely under control and set off down the outer paths. They pull you in opposite directions. They roll in the mud. One chases a squirrel. You lose your slipper in a ditch. but you laugh the entire time. And when you return muddy and breathless, the steward raises an eyebrow. "Rough afternoon, my lady. Perfect afternoon," you reply and mean it. That night you write in your little book again, some joys don't sparkle, some fun doesn't shout, but oh, how it lingers when no one finds out. As you lie in bed, the pouch still warm against your chest, you think about the fair, the dogs, the story the bard told. You think I'm more than they see. And you're right. Because for all the roles you're expected to play, daughter, wife, lady, you are also the girl who leapt the fire, danced in the mud, and wore a charm stitched by her own hands. And that you know is the kind of fun no title can ever grant. The frost comes early this year. You wake to find your window panes kissed with icy spirals and your breath visible in the morning light. The hearth has gone cold overnight, and it takes a full hour to warm the chamber enough for your maid to remove your outermost blanket without protest. But you don't mind the cold, not today. Because snow means one thing: no embroidery, no visits, no long walks pretending to admire the landscape while secretly dodging conversation. Today, for once, you can play. Yes, play. There's a word you don't often say aloud, not at your age, not in your position. But as you slip into your fur-lined cloak and push open the doors to the courtyard, the crunch of snow underfoot is enough to melt away any pretense. The other ladies are already there, screeching, laughing, tossing snowballs with woeful aim and wet sleeves. Someone's built a crooked snow dog. Someone else is trying to fashion a crown from ice. You grab a handful of snow and mold it into a lopsided ball. Your first throw misses by a mile. The second hits a shrieking target. It's chaos. Glorious, freezing, pink-cheeked chaos. And then skating. The pond just beyond the orchard has frozen thick enough. It's not elegant like the court dances. It's a battle of balance where laughter outweighs grace. You borrow a pair of strapped-on wooden skates and stumble across the surface, arms flailing. By the third lap, you find your rhythm and then you fly. Hair-loose cloak billowing behind you carve lazy circles around the others. A few fall. One shrieks as she skids straight into a snowbank. You're breathless, aching, delighted. When your fingers finally go numb and your nose can't take another blast of wind, you gather inside for warm cider. The kitchen has prepared sweetened bread soaked in milk and cloves. You sit on the floor by the fire, skirts tucked around your knees, trading stories of failed spins and heroic dodges. One of the youngest girls confesses she stuffed straw into her shoes this morning. "Better than freezing," she declares. The others gasp, scandalized. But you laugh and say, "Remind me to try it tomorrow." Later that day, back in the solar, someone brings out a storytelling game. It's simple. One person begins a tale, and each person adds to it sentence by sentence. The results are absurd. An ogre who falls in love with a goose, a knight whose only weapon is a very sarcastic spoon, a princess who wins her kingdom back by baking the perfect pie. But in these stories, hidden beneath the laughter, are pieces of truth. You all want to escape, to imagine a world where cleverness wins, where kindness is power, where fun isn't something to apologize for. You realize that none of these stories have ended with marriage. No grand wedding. No happily ever after bound by duty. You like that. That evening, you're invited to visit the castle library, not the chained texts of saints and scribes, but the older wing full of forgotten scrolls, half-destroyed bestiaries, and books that no longer have a patron to protect them. You go wrapped in 3 layers of wool, your hands wrapped around a candle. You explore the shelves, slowly trailing your fingers along dusty spines. You find a book of riddles, another of sea monsters, a third. with hand-painted illustrations of mythical beasts you've never heard of. One depicts a woman with wings made of flame and a wolf at her side. You stop there for a while. The light flickers. You sit cross-legged on the cold floor and read by candlelight. The air smells of paper and time. You imagine what it would be like to be that winged woman, untouchable, untamed, riding her wolf across the moors at dusk. Eventually, you slip the book into your lap and close your eyes. You won't steal it, but you'll remember. Maybe draw her later. Maybe write a verse. Maybe become her in small ways. As the night deepens, you retreat to your chamber and change into your thickest nightdress. Your fingers still tingle from the cold, but your heart is warm. You take out your little fox carving and place it beside your bed. Then, almost without thinking, you press a kiss to the red-threaded charm pouch you've kept for weeks. You climb under the covers, whispering to yourself, "I'm more than they think." And you are. You're the girl who skated like the wind, who played the villainous queen in a dusty gallery theater, who foraged in the woods, leapt the midsummer flame, danced with peasants, and wrote secret poems in the margins of holy texts. You didn't need permission. You simply did. And that, more than anything, is what fun has become for you. Not a game. Not a prize. Not even a rebellion. A quiet declaration. A soft snow continues to fall the next morning, dusting the castle rooftops like powdered sugar. The world feels quieter beneath it, muffled and still, as though time itself has taken a breath. You sip warm broth by the window, watching servants shovel narrow paths through the courtyard, and birds hop between bare branches in search of seeds. Winter has settled in. But even winter has its games. After the midday meal, a message arrives from the steward. The ice on the lake has thickened enough for a proper winter contest. Everyone is invited. And this isn't just skating or snowball fights, this is the boar sled. A tradition so old and ridiculous that no one even remembers who started it. The rules are simple. You climb into an old wooden trough, once used for feeding pigs, and get pushed down the hill behind the stables. The one who travels farthest fastest and screams the loudest wins. You shouldn't. It's beneath your station. It's undignified. Of course you go. Wrapped in 4 layers of wool and an old fur hat too big for your head, you stand at the top of the hill, eyeing the trough like it's a royal carriage. Someone has tied ribbons to the front. The snow beneath it gleams with a slick layer of ice. You grip the edges, give a war cry you hope sounds fierce, and hurl yourself down the hill. The wind roars past your ears. Your hat flies off. You hit a bump and nearly bounce clear. The world blurs. You land in a drift, laughing so hard you can't breathe. When you finally stagger to your feet, wet and wheezing, the applause is louder than any chamber performance you've given all year. Your prize. A small wheel of winter cheese wrapped in cloth. You parade it through the castle halls like a crown. Later that evening, you sneak it into the solar and slice it carefully, sharing it with your companions. It's sharp and crumbly, and when you bite into it, the flavor is stronger than you expected, like all the laughter and chill of the day concentrated into a single bite. One of the girls says, "We should do this every week." You nod. Or every day. Someone replies, "Who needs embroidery when you've got cheese and sleds?" The room erupts in giggles. But winter isn't only for play. There's a rhythm to these months that makes room for quieter joys. That night, you bring your weaving back to the solar. The pattern is slowly taking shape, interlocking stars in deep plum and silver. You lose yourself in the motion, the warmth of nearby firelight, the quiet companionship of others doing the same. Someone recites a poem, halting and unsure. Another begins a ghost story about a lady in white who wanders snowy roads looking for her lost ring. You shiver not from cold. Then come the riddles again. One about a talking ox. One about a door that only opens if you lie to it. Each answer is sillier than the last. But you notice something even the most serious among you plays along. Even the steward's wife, who never cracks a smile, guesses the ox is a priest. As the night stretches on, someone dares to suggest a fortune game candle drips over cold water to predict your fate. You all gather around the bowl. One by one, you hold your candle and let the wax fall drop by drop into the chilled basin. When it's your turn, you lean in watching as the hardened wax takes shape. It twists, splits, clusters. The final form looks almost like wings. No one says it aloud, but you all see it. Later in your chamber, you stare at the figure resting on your bedside table. Wings, again. Like the drawing of the fire-winged woman in the library. Like the freedom you never dared name. You lie in bed listening to the wind whip against the shutters and remember how it felt to fly down that hill. To scream without shame. To win something as silly and perfect as a wheel of cheese. The days are shorter now. The fire burns earlier. But in your heart, something glows warm and steady. You've begun to understand that fun is not just a break from your life, it's part of yourself. A core truth the world often tries to quiet. But not today. Not this winter. Because you leapt. You danced. You dared. And now, even when the laughter fades, the echo stays. The cold deepens as the new year creeps in, slow and gray. The castle windows rattle with wind, and the stone corridors seem to sigh beneath the weight of winter. Even the tapestries feel heavier. But inside the walls, life continues slower, softer, more inward. You've come to savor these quieter days. There's something indulgent about taking your time, waking slowly, wrapping yourself in blankets, reading by firelight, without any rush to do only to be. And today you decide to begin something you've been imagining for weeks, a book of your own. Not a psalter, not a ledger. A book. One of stories sketches bits of verse recipes you half remember the names of herbs and their hidden meanings. A secret living book that will never be seen by any priest or tutor. A book for you. You gather supplies, rough parchment, a few needles, and thread a narrow scrap of leather for the binding. You tuck it all into a cloth bundle and climb to your favorite spot, the small alcove above the south stairs, where the sun sometimes gathers like honey. It's cold up there, but quiet. Yours. The first page is intimidating. Blank, expectant. But eventually you begin. You write, "Let this be a book of truth, of games and green things, of fire leapt and love not named, of laughter not yet written." It isn't perfect, but it's real. You sketch a fox in the margin, a falcon with stars on its wings, a girl leaping over a bonfire. You smile. By the time you return to the solar, the fire has been lit, and several ladies are huddled around something curious, a puppet theater. Yes, a puppet theater. One of the chambermaids found the frame in storage and convinced a few of the younger girls to help her repaint it. They've strung up a velvet scrap for a curtain and cut little figures from old scraps of wood and leather. They ask if you'll help write a story for the performance. Of course you say yes. You pen a short play about a clever miller's daughter who outsmarts a dragon using nothing but riddles and a stolen spice rack. The dragon is voiced by a girl with a surprisingly deep growl. The miller's daughter speaks in rhyme. The performance is clumsy, chaotic, and completely captivating. Even the kitchen staff sneaks in to watch, wiping flour-dusted hands on their aprons and laughing quietly in the corners. After the applause and a few overly dramatic curtain calls, one of the younger girls tugs your sleeve. Can the next one be about the fox who steals the bishop's ring? You raise an eyebrow. That's bold. She shrugs. So was the fox. That night you write the first lines of The Fox and the Bishop into your book. It's already becoming more than a journal. It's a record of fun mischief and memory, a history only you can tell. The next day brings another rare opportunity: sleigh rides. The steward has commissioned several servants to prepare the wooden sleighs, simple curved runners, with flat benches and thick fur linings. The horses are restless from days indoors, their breath pluming into the frosty air. You climb into one cheek's stinging breath caught in your throat. The driver snaps the reins, and suddenly you're racing down the snowy path through the woods. Trees blur past. The wind bites your nose. You laugh and shout like a child clutching the side rail as the sleigh tilts around a bend. At one point, you pass another sleigh and exchange mock insults with the rider. A race breaks out. You lose barely, but demand a rematch. The entire castle watches from the gates, bundled and beaming. Back inside, everyone crowds around the fire, flushed and alive. Someone brings out roasted chestnuts. Someone else uncorks a bottle of mead saved since Michaelmas. The chatter turns to games again, this time charades. You're tasked with miming St. Margaret fighting a dragon, and your exaggerated poses send the room into a fit of hysterics. You end the evening with sore ribs and tear-streaked cheeks from too much laughing. Before bed, you return to your book and write. Let this page smell of snow and smoke. Let it rustle with speed and joy. Let it remember what it feels like to fly with no wings but laughter. You sleep deeply that night, the kind of sleep that comes not from exhaustion but from contentment. And as the wind whistles softly outside, you dream not of ballrooms or coronets or courtly love. You dream of puppet plays and racing sleighs, of secret books and riddles, of your own voice strong and sure telling stories that only you could write. Because fun isn't just a pastime anymore. It's who you've become. The days begin to stretch again, just slightly. You notice it first in the way the sun lingers longer on the western towers, in the faint return of birdsong before breakfast, and in the way your chamber no longer feels like a saw by mid-afternoon. Spring isn't here yet, but it's thinking about it. With the edge of winter softening, the castle stirs with energy. Wool cloaks hang a little looser. Windows crack open for the first time in months. And best of all, the kitchens start preparing lemon cakes again. You help bake them one afternoon just because you can. It starts with a bowl of flour and ends with your cheeks dusted in white, your sleeves sticky with citrus, and a dozen warm cakes wrapped in linen. You carry them to the solar like treasure. The other ladies devour them greedily, laughing as they argue over which one has the most honey glaze. It's simple, this moment, but it feels golden. Later that day, while brushing your hair at the window, you spot the first crocus poking through the snow in the garden below. You drop your brush throw on your boots and rush out to see it. Tiny, purple, defiant. You kneel in the cold dirt fingertips, brushing the petal. It's not even fully open, but it's alive. A quiet promise that the world is waking up again. And with it are the games. By week's end, the steward declares it's time to bring out the spring table. A huge slab of wood carved with a maze of cups and marbles, pegs and pits. No one knows the exact rules. Every family seems to play it differently. You've always adored the chaos. This year, you and your closest companions form a team. You give yourselves a ridiculous name, the Velvet Ferrets. Your crest is drawn hastily on a handkerchief, an actual ferret wearing a tiara. The other teams roar with laughter when you unveil it. But then, you win the first match, and the second. By the third round, people are starting to chant, "Ferrets, ferrets," in the courtyard. You're crying with laughter, one hand on your ribs, the other pushing a marble with ridiculous precision toward the final cup. You win the tournament. Your prize, a flower crown made of dried herbs and winter roses. You wear it all day, even through supper, even when the Baron raises an eyebrow. That evening you host a celebration in the solar, your own little court of misrule. Someone brings a lute. Someone else writes a poem about your championship. The chorus rhymes ferret with merit in the clumsiest way imaginable, and it becomes an instant classic. You record the whole event in your secret book, of course. Page after page of scribbled lines, diagrams of the game board, and a watercolor of the flower crown before it begins to droop. The next day, a gift arrives in your chamber. A tiny embroidered pouch with a note for the Queen of Spring Mischief. Inside is a thimble painted like a ferret. No one signs it. You wear it like a ring for the next 3 days. Later in the week, you go riding, not for show, not with a train of guards, but just with 2 friends and 3 horses still frisky from a winter cooped in the stables. You gallop hard, hair, loose hearts racing across the field where snow is melting in uneven patches. At one point, you dismount and just lie down on the damp grass, arms spread wide, staring up at the pale blue sky. The others join you. It's muddy, cold, utterly improper. Perfect. You talk about everything and nothing. What you'd do if you weren't noble, what names you'd give to imaginary ships, what the stars might say if they could speak. Then one of your friends says, "I think fun is what makes us real." The others nod. You do too, because it's not embroidery or formality or title that makes you feel most alive. It's this foolish, messy, joyful moment in the half-melted field with dirty hands and aching legs and a sky full of light. That evening, you sketch a map of the ride in your book. Label the field, place where we remembered ourselves. You underline it twice. And before you sleep, you whisper a quiet vow into the crook of your arm. I won't let the world take this from me. Not the cake baking. Not the marble races, not the muddy rides or puppet plays or the clumsy poems that still make your ribs hurt with laughter. You've found something precious, and now that you've named it, you'll guard it. Like a fox with a secret, like a queen with no crown, like a girl with a book full of stars. Spring is finally real. Not a promise, not a rumor, but a sensation. You feel it in the breeze that no longer bites, in the puddles that sparkle instead of freeze, and in the sudden explosion of color across the castle grounds. Blossoms everywhere, hawthorn, primrose, daffodils, all bursting through soil, like laughter breaking through silence. Today you leave the castle before sunrise. You're not supposed to, but no one stops you. You pull on your boots, wrap yourself in a cloak, and slip out through the old servant's door, the one that sticks just enough to make it feel like a secret. You walk alone, dew soaking the hem of your gown, the hush of dawn wrapping around you like silk. You head toward the orchard, where the first buds are opening. And there, beneath the twisted branches of an old pear tree, you sit. You're not waiting for anyone. You're not running from anything. You just are. It feels new. Later that morning, the entire castle prepares for May Day. This is no small affair. Garlands are strung between towers. Musicians warm their fingers on pipes and lutes. The cook has spent the last 2 days preparing a pie so enormous it has its own table. You're called to help with the maypole dressing a spiral of ribbons and fresh greenery tied so precisely it looks enchanted. Everyone's giddy. Even the steward hums. Even the dowager countess smiles. You wear a crown of daisies. Not because you have to, because you want to. The maypole dance is clumsy at first. Feet tangle. Ribbons slip. But soon the pattern finds itself over, under, spiraling tighter, faster, brighter. You lock eyes with a boy from the far stables. Just for a moment. A shared grin. Nothing more. But the spark is there. After the dancing, there's the crowning of the May Queen. It's always ceremonial, chosen well in advance. But this year, something strange happens. A chant starts among the girls. Quiet at first, then louder. Your name. You blush, laugh, wave it off. But the chant grows. May Queen, May Queen. Someone takes your hand and leads you forward. They place a crown of woven violets and rosemary on your head. You can hardly breathe. You say something ridiculous like, "I didn't prepare a speech," and the whole courtyard erupts in laughter. You don't feel noble or powerful. You feel seen. That evening, you sneak away from the feast with a few close friends. You climb the western tower crown still in place and share slices of stolen pie beneath a sky smeared with stars. You lie on your back, the crown tipped over your eyes, and listen as someone begins to sing a soft old tune from the countryside. A lullaby for wild girls who don't sleep when they're told. You hum along. Later in the quiet of your chamber, you write in your secret book, "They called me queen, but I was already royal with my muddy boots and violet crown and the taste of pie still on my tongue." The next day, you try something new, a game of echo storytelling. You gather the girls in the solar and begin a tale, then pass it on. Each person must repeat what came before and add their own twist. It becomes absurd. Fast, a noblewoman falls into a well, discovers a tunnel to a cheese kingdom, and is declared empress after solving a riddle about goats. You laugh until your stomach aches. But you also notice something. The youngest girls, once so shy, now lean in eagerly. One mimics your voice. Another borrows your riddle style. Your fun has become contagious. Later, someone knocks softly on your door. It's the castle's scribe, an older man who rarely speaks to women unless asked. He holds out a small bundle. From the abbey, he says, "Inside is a book of poetry. Women's poetry. Translated rare, precious. You read it by candlelight curled beneath your favorite quilt." One poem stands out. It's about a woman who dances alone in a clearing, unseen, unafraid, unwritten, until she writes herself. You whisper the final lines aloud, "No man will sing of me." So I sing myself, wild and full and laughing, in the place they forgot to look. You stare at the flame, then close the book and add your own verse beside it. Because you're not waiting to be remembered anymore. You're recording it. Fun for you is no longer something borrowed. It's not stolen hours or disguised laughter. It's authored. It's yours. And with every page you write, every laugh you spark, every game you start from nothing but air and imagination, you carve your name not into stone, not into legend, but into life itself. The days are long now. The sun doesn't slip behind the hills until late in the evening, and everything in the world seems to glow just a little longer. Stone walls warm to the touch, flowers refusing to close, birds singing, like they've forgotten how to stop. Even your footsteps feel lighter. Even your shadow feels brighter. Today marks a full turn of the seasons, a full circle. Since you first asked the question, what do medieval ladies do for fun? You think of who you were then, the girl who smiled politely, who did as expected, who whispered poems into candlelight, but rarely let anyone hear. And you think of who you are now. You've danced barefoot under moonlight and raced sleds down icy hills. You've written riddles, crafted your own stories, and laughed so hard your ribs ached. You've worn crowns of flowers and ash fox carvings and thimbles, mischief and joy. You've made memories not because someone told you to, but because you chose them. So when the steward asks if you'd like to help plan the Midsummer Games this year, you don't hesitate. You say yes, because now fun isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create. The next few days are a whirlwind of preparation. You design a scavenger hunt through the orchard, each clue hidden beneath stones or behind loose branches wrapped in verses only someone with a sense of humor and a sharp mind can solve. You arrange a race where the competitors must balance baskets of apples on their heads while reciting lines from a love poem. You revive the puppet theater with a brand new play titled The Ferret Who Fooled the King. You paint the scenery yourself, laughing, as you smear blue paint onto your sleeves and hair. And on the night of the festival, as the courtyard fills with torchlight and the air hums with lutes and fiddles, you wear your violet crown again, this time by choice. The scavenger hunt ends in the chapel garden, where the last clue leads to a locked chest containing pastries, ribbons, and a carved wooden spoon you've inscribed, "Official silliest winner of the realm." When the youngest chambermaid wins it, her face lights up like the moon. Later, you gather a circle of girls beneath a canopy of stars and lead them in the echo game again. Only this time you begin with a truth. There once was a girl, you say, who thought fun belonged to others, that it had to be neat or quiet or earned. The next girl continues, but then she found it hiding beneath songs, between jokes in crooked baskets and puppet stages. And so it goes around and around, each girl adding a piece, until someone ends with, and in the end she realized fun wasn't a break from being herself. It was herself fully awake. There's a hush after that, the good kind. Later still, you return to your chamber alone. The castle is quiet. Only the wind stirs through the slits in the stone. You open your book, the one with foxes and riddles and crumbs between the pages, and write your final entry for the season. Let this be the truth I carry. That joy is not rare, nor forbidden, nor foolish. It is a language I was born speaking soft, at first then louder, until the world heard me laughing. You tuck the book beneath your pillow, not because you fear someone finding it, but because you like sleeping close to your own story. Tomorrow will bring duties, expectations, roles to play. It always does. But tonight, you remember the falcon's wings, the midsummer flame, the secret sleigh ride, the mud-soaked ride across the field, the stolen pie, the made-up poems, the girl who dared to leap. You are her, and she is you. Now that your journeys come full circle, let your breath begin to slow. Let your thoughts soften like petals folding closed at dusk. You've wandered through meadows, tiptoed through snowy halls, hidden behind velvet masks, and danced in the flickering firelight of a world long gone but strangely familiar. You've stitched joy into tapestries and riddles into poetry. You've sipped cider spun in circles and laughed until your sides ached, all while learning something no book could quite capture. That even in a world of rules and rituals, of stitched bodices and stiff expectations, fun was not lost. It was hidden in quiet rebellion, in creativity, in the knowing glance between girls who understood. The secret games, the puppet plays, the stories no one wrote down until you did. And now, as the candles of this tale gutter low, your body can sink deeper into the bed beneath you. Your chest rises, falls easy now. Your limbs are heavy warm. The castle walls fade. The music dims. The gardens, the tapestries, the pages of your secret book, they all gently close. Because the fun didn't end. It simply found a place to rest. And you can rest too. Tomorrow will come as it always does. But tonight, your mind deserves stillness. Let the fox slip back into the forest. Let the ferret nap in its embroidered pouch. Let the girl with the violet crown lie down under the stars, her fingers still dusted with flour and ink. She is safe. She is smiling. And so are you. Close your eyes now. There's nothing more to do, nothing more to remember, only dreams to welcome you like old friends.